federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted material without the permission of the copyright holder. Why the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses is unsafe for children. Hello everyone. Today, that is what we are going to discuss. I have written an article on the topic, by the way, and I'll put the link down below if you want to read the article. Why is it so unsafe to raise a child in a religion, in a so-called religion, like the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses? Well, this is what I want to discuss today because it's very, very, very interesting and very important to know why this religion, like any other restrictive cult-like religion, is very dangerous, very unsafe at the very least, for a child to grow up in such an environment. If there is one thing that I've learned during my years of studying psychology and my years of helping people, helping my clients with their issues about life, about things that they really, really need help to fix. If there is one thing that I've learned is that for 99.9% of the time, when someone has an issue, a problem that prevents them to live a normal life, it's coming from one source and from one source only, and that is their childhood. So, in short, we can say that your childhood is going to dictate what your adulthood is going to look like. That is why I wanted to discuss this topic today. Why is it so unsafe to raise a child in a religion such as the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses? Before we cut into the chase of the problem within the religion itself, I want to explain to you how the subconscious mind of a child is shaped, and that is called the subconscious programming. The subconscious programming happens crucially between 0 and 7 years old. And it continues to happen importantly, not as crucially, but still importantly, between the age of 7 and 16 years old. We could compare the subconscious mind of a child to a sponge. If you put a sponge on the top of a puddle of clean water, well, that sponge is going to absorb that clean water, right? But if you put that same sponge on top of a dirty water, on top of a pool of dirty water, well, it's going to absorb that dirty water just the same way. So that is why it is crucial that you understand that whatever you put the mind of your child into, it's going to absorb it. So if it's negative, he's going to absorb that negativity. And if it's positive, same thing. It's going to absorb that positivity. That is why psychologist Dr. Lipton compared the subconscious mind to a tape recorder. A tape recorder does not judge what it's going to tape or not tape. If you push the on button, it's going to tape whatever noise is there. All right? It could be two people arguing, it could be rock music, it could be classical music. It does not matter. That tape recorder doesn't care. It's just going to tape what is to be heard. Well, the subconscious mind, unlike the conscious mind, is doing the same thing. The subconscious mind does not reason, unlike the conscious mind. It takes things in as it is. And that is why the programming as a child of your subconscious mind, or the programming of your children's subconscious mind, is so vital. And why that first decade or decade and a half is so important? Because this is a time in your life where your subconscious mind is way more active than your conscious mind. As a matter of fact, just observe a newborn. A newborn is functioning only subconsciously, basically. He has pretty much zero consciousness yet. So you could say that consciousness grows as you grow older. And that is why experts have found that until that consciousness is fully grown up, so to speak, it takes about a decade and a half. And especially during those 7 first years, that child, whatever he's learning, is learning it pretty much completely subconsciously. Try to remember something you've done before the age of 5, 6, 7 years old. You are going to remember maybe some things, but what are those memories like? Like flashes, images, very short little things, not much details, right? But for the most part, you are not going to remember much of it at all. And that's why the older you get, the less you remember from those 7, 10 first years of your life. So with this in mind, now let's see some specific reasons, some religious specific reasons why it's so unsafe to grow up in a religion like the one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Number one, nothing is really as it appears among Jehovah's Witnesses. And what I mean is that, for example, Jehovah's Witnesses like to appear to be happy all the time. You have those smiley people knocking on doors and seemingly always in a good mood and at peace, and everything is perfectly all right. But us, ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and even you, if you are still a Jehovah's Witness, you know that this is not true. As a matter of fact, even the few that actually like to go on field service, the one that actually enjoy preaching to strangers, even those are not happy. Even them, they are not happy. The average Jehovah's Witness is rather downright depressed, fatigued, or unsatisfied with life as a whole. So the average Jehovah's Witness, and we know that whether we were there or still in this organization, we know that the average Jehovah's Witness is not a happy person, and he has just learned to put up a front of a happy person. Well, a child growing up in such an environment, don't confuse being a child and being stupid. A child may know less than an adult, but they are very perceptive, and they are far from being stupid, as I am sure you know. So a child very early on is going to learn to pretend, basically, like the adults around him or her. Is going to learn, okay, I see how it works here. The adults around me are pretending to be happy, but they're really hiding their true feelings. And a child growing up among Jehovah's Witnesses, unfortunately, is going to learn to do that. Is going to learn to suffer in silence, basically, and pretending to be happy. But they are really going to be unhappy in the inside. And that, my dear friend, is very unhealthy and unsafe even for a child. Second reason why it's so unsafe to be a child in this religion, in the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses, well, it's that the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses is still encouraging, or at least today, if they're not encouraging it as much, they sure don't discourage it. But anyway, the average Jehovah's Witnesses understands, even to this day, that he still can hit his child. And the reason that we know that, it's that when Jeffrey Jackson was asked the question during the trial of the Royal Commission in Australia, well, he couldn't deny it.
Does your church accept corporal punishment of children?
Our church accepts the family arrangement and expects that parents have the responsibility to discipline and raise their children.
That doesn't answer my question. Do you accept corporal punishment?
In our literature, I think you'll see time and time again, we've endeavoured to explain that here, discipline is referring to more a mental point of view.
I regret to tell you, you're still not answering my question. Do you accept corporal punishment?
No.
You don't?
Not personally, no. And not as an organisation. We don't encourage it.
Really, Jeffrey Jackson? Here is a testimony that I've seen recently, and there are many like this one out there. I remember being dragged, screaming, and beaten in the back of the hall. When my dad wasn't there, my mom would hand me over to brothers in the hall for a good shit kicking. My mom did the pinch twist too. So many great memories. So we all have seen those poor kids being dragged to the back of the Kingdom Hall, to the bathrooms, and get a beating there. I remember it was in Salisbury, North Carolina, one of my first assemblies as a new baptized Jehovah's Witness. And I was shocked, and that's why I will never forget that. A mother was beating her child so badly in the restrooms that we had to call a couple of elders, and they had to get into the ladies' room to stop that crazy woman. And we understand this today. Experts understand this today, that it is not healthy for a child to receive beatings on a regular basis, not even spanking. Now, if you spank your child a few times, no, he's not going to be traumatized by that. But first of all, we know that Jehovah's Witnesses just don't only spank children, but sometimes treat them pretty badly. Anyway, this is why today, 2017, it is forbidden to hit your child, but this crazy religion that still lives in 1950 is still not understanding this. So this is one crucial reason why it's not safe to grow up in this religion, is that you are going to receive some beatings, some spankings, some slappings, and God knows what else. And if you say it's not true, good for you. Maybe you have not received this type of treatment as a child, if you are a Jehovah's Witness who want to say that this is not true. But just go on forums of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who grew up in this religion, and they'll tell you. They'll tell you how they've been very disturbed by the beating that they have received. So keep this in mind. One very important reason why it's not safe to grow up in this religion. Now, another reason why it's so unsafe to grow up in this religion of Jehovah's Witnesses as a child. It's the images, the inadequate images that the average child is made to look at. When you think about this awful book, my book of Bible stories, that yellow book that was published in 1978, when you hear comments, testimonies from ex-Jehovah's Witnesses who grew up in this religion, they tell you how those images were disturbing to them. And that is completely normal that they were. It would be actually abnormal if they were not disturbed by this kind of images at such a young age. When you think that this book was put into the hands of children before they could even read, so meaning anywhere between 1 and 4 or 5 years old, when the subconscious mind is like a sponge, right? And what do you see in this book? Awful images. You see a man killing his brother. You see a woman thrown out of a window. You see a man trying to cut a baby in two. You see that Egyptian holding his dead son, killed by Jehovah himself. I mean, this is completely wrong. Only the Watchtower, who has no idea whatsoever, and they proved that already, they have no idea whatsoever about what's safe and what's unsafe for the human brain, but especially for the human brain when the human is just a little child. They have no idea of what's dangerous or what's safe. This type of very negative images, even violent images, is very wrong and very bad for the mind of a child. Yet another reason why this religion is so unsafe for children, that permanent promise of doom and destruction. Put yourself in the shoes of a small child that has that cloud above his head, that constant cloud above his head, that Armageddon is coming soon. And guess what? If that child is in school right now, he understands that all his classmates and teachers are going to be destroyed at Armageddon. But what's more, they're going to be destroyed because of him or her, because they did not tell them that they need to become Jehovah's Witnesses in order to be saved. So that, my dear friend, it's enough to provoke a lot of anxiety and nightmares in children. And I'm not making that up, because if you hear testimonies of some ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, they'll tell you that's exactly what they were going through as children. They had a lot of anxiety and nightmares because of that constant doom and destruction promised by their religion to be coming soon. And not only it was going to be scary, but it was going to kill people that they knew personally. And some of those people would be destroyed because of them, because they had not told them that they needed to be on Jehovah's side. If they didn't tell them that, on top of the anxiety, the nightmares, they have that enormous, enormous guilt. And last but not least, by any means, the denying of the self. A child who grows up in a normal type society is going to be allowed to be himself or herself. Is going to be allowed to have likes and dislikes, to have hobbies, to have passions, to plan for a career. He's going to be allowed to wear what he wants to wear, maybe have the type of haircuts he wants to have or she wants to have as he grows older and can make the tough decisions. Basically, a healthy child would be allowed to be his own person or her own person. In the case of growing up in this religion of Jehovah's Witnesses, unfortunately, that is not going to be the case at all. As a Jehovah's Witness child, you are taught very, very early on, there is no such thing as me. It's all about Jehovah, what Jehovah wants, what Jehovah likes, what Jehovah doesn't like. What you want, what you like, what you don't like, what you want to do is not important at all. And that is the very reason why, you can't even celebrate your own birthday. And that poor child, not that you can't live without celebrating your birthday, but that poor child is even denying the very celebration of the day he was or she was born. So, anyhow, the denying of the self is not healthy, because the denying of the self actually induces depression. And the lack of a healthy dose of love of oneself is going to create a very unbalanced adult. And I could go on on this topic, but I want you to get the point here without my video lasting forever. The lack of self-love is not healthy for anyone. But when you learn as a child to have a lack of self-love, you are most likely, not maybe, and not all the time either, but most likely going to have a tendency to be depressed as an adult, to have no goal as an adult. And usually you will not live a life of a successful person for the most part. You are most likely going to have a very low pay type job. You are going to see yourself as unimportant. Your self-esteem is going to be affected very much so. So, my dear friend, this is maybe the worst of them all. The denying of the self in a child is very, very detrimental for his future, for his adult life. And that is another very ugly reason why it's unsafe to be raised in this religion of Jehovah's Witnesses. So, I hope this video was helpful to you, maybe to understand what went on, what happened to you as a child if you grew up in this religion, and especially if you have children and you are still one of Jehovah's Witnesses. You have to understand that if you follow the rules, you are not going to raise a healthy child when he becomes an adult. And if you are studying with Jehovah's Witnesses and have children, it's not too late. You can just stop your study right now and stop the damages. You do not need to indoctrinate your child with unhealthy and unsafe teaching and doctrines that is going to affect his life, his adulthood, in a negative way. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like it, share it, comment, and I'll see you as always in my next video. Bye bye now.